What's the future of UWP? When will we hear more about Windows Core OS? And will Microsoft ever release an Android phone? All that and more on this episode of Ask Dan Windows. Stay tuned. Is Windows Core OS going to be mentioned at Mobile World Congress by Microsoft or at their Build event later this year? All right, so Windows Core OS, for those who haven't been following, I have some other videos talking about this topic extensively. It's the new version of Windows. It's not replacing Windows 10 Pro, and we expect Windows Core OS will be for new devices and new experiences. In fact, I have actually seen some more of this recently, and it doesn't look a lot like Windows 10. It has some elements that are overlap with it, but let's just say it looks differently, and I'm talking about the desktop version, so it's kind of cool. Stay tuned for that. As to when Microsoft will talk about Windows Core OS, well, that is the big mystery. I don't really expect them to talk about it at Mobile World Congress. We do have another video where I talk about how I expect HoloLens 2 to be announced at Mobile World Congress, and that may actually run Windows Core OS. But the real question is, will Microsoft call it by its name or just talk about it as a Windows experience? I'm not really sure they're going to go out there with a branding thing for this. Instead, they're going to talk about a Windows experience on a certain platform. That's probably what they'll do with HoloLens. But yes, at Build, I do expect more information about this. In fact, we're hearing they may actually have some sort of device for developers to use to build off of Windows Core OS going forward before its big kind of commercial push. You'll also see Windows Core OS for Surface Hub 2, which is running that as an experience as well. So expect to hear more about this going to 2019 and 2020, but I don't really think Microsoft's going to actually call it by a new name. They'll just refer to it as a Windows experience. Will Microsoft release an Android phone? Short answer, no. There's no reason for Microsoft to release a phone running Android, which is already a saturated market, and in fact, a lot of companies are having a tough time making money here. Do not expect this ever to happen. Do you think someday there could be an always-on Windows 10 device with an Intel processor? One of my favorite topics to talk about is Windows 10 and ARM, specifically Qualcomm and the Snapdragon chipset. So the question is, will Intel ever catch up to Qualcomm regarding battery management and connectivity? I think the answer is yes, or at least they're going to approach it. So Intel recently announced its Ice Lake chipsets, 10 nanometers, and it comes out in late 2019. And I've seen some prototype devices already that will be running this chipset, and well, I'm very excited about it. Now, I don't think Intel is going to necessarily beat Qualcomm here, but they are trying to compete for instant on and always connected devices. Qualcomm still will have an edge just due to their architecture, but sure, Intel knows the threat Qualcomm poses, and they're trying to have a response to it, so stay tuned for that. As Microsoft is not using UWP in most of their new products, what do you think will be the future of Windows Core OS? All right, ever since Microsoft got rid of Windows 10 Mobile, UWP has been kind of floating out there, not really doing a lot. That's not to say there hasn't been movement behind the scenes. Microsoft is still developing a lot of APIs. And in fact, with every release, they have been improving UWP, but we're not seeing a large uptake of new apps in the store. That's just because of the platform. Having said that, UWP is super important. For instance, Windows Core OS, as you mentioned in that question, it plays a huge role in things like HoloLens. After all, HoloLens does not run Win32 applications. You're not running Photoshop in it, you're running UWP apps. You absolutely need that for HoloLens going forward. You also need it for things like Surface Hub and new future devices that will be coming out running the Polaris system, which is a desktop version of Windows Core OS. In fact, you can make an argument here that Windows Core OS is a UWP operating system. Its whole thing is based on UWP. So the future of Windows Core OS is definitely UWP, and expect a lot of movement happening in the next few years. All right, so that does it for this episode. Remember, you can ask me a question using hashtag askdanwindows on Twitter, or send me an email at askdan@windowscentral.com. You can also leave me a comment below, and I'll try to answer them there. Otherwise, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching. Take care, everyone.